So welcome everyone in the room. I'm DJ Smith. I'm the co-founder of the Glimpse Group. Glimpse is a AR and VR company at its core. Now we are deeply integrating AI as most technology firms are doing. We're helping CSI open the incubator, the hub, the AR VR lab. And as part of that, we are going to be doing some workshops and programming. And one of the new products that our company is developing is a AI soft skills training platform called Fortel. With that platform, we have been deep in the LLM space, analyzing what systems and what backends are best for our particular use case, and then also what promptings methods give us the outcomes that we've been looking for. So this AI workshop we'll start with a little bit of background knowledge. We kind of geared it towards the CS STEM students, but we're not going to go too deep into the code side, and it's more philosophical. I was saying before that prompt engineering is a little bit more like an art than a science, and it's dynamic. As the backends change significantly, your prompting systems have to change. Jordan here is our lead prompt engineer. He spends way too much time speaking to AI people, and he's here to show us everything he does. And we want to definitely keep the workshop active. If you have questions, please just raise your hand. It's totally cool to cut us off and go into more of a discussion about stuff. And we do have a couple little activities. If you have just a phone or computer to get into ChatGPT, we'll do a little bit of live stuff in the beginning, and then for the second half, we really want to lift the hood and show you folks how our system works and some of the challenges that we had. So with that, I think I'll hand it off to Jordan. And thank you very much for coming. And eat pizza.
All right. Thank you, DJ. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Gutt. I'm happy to be with you all here today for this AI in Action workshop. So we'll get started. We have some people on the Zoom call as well. So just a bit of a overview of the workshop and the objectives. So we'll talk a little bit about how LLMs work, best practices for crafting prompts, some limitations of LLMs, some advanced prompting techniques. So at the end of this workshop, you'll have a solid understanding of LLMs and practical skills to interact with them effectively. We're going to review some mental models for LLMs. LLMs are good for some things and not really good for others. So we'll get to know some of the sharp edges to be aware of when we're using LLMs. So this is a hands-on workshop, so make sure you have access to either ChatGPT or Claude, because at various times we'll ask you to create some prompts of your own, and we'll have a quick discussion about that. All right, yeah, so ChatGPT or Claude would be great. It could be on your phone or your website, and it could be the free version as well. So this is the agenda. We'll talk about LLMs, the pre-training and post-training process, and then get into prompt engineering. And then we'll have an overview of the Fortel AI avatar system for soft skills training. So again, my name is Jordan Gutt. I'm Director of Operations at Fortel Reality. That's a Glimpse Group subsidiary company and Principal Prompt Engineer at the Glimpse Group. As DJ said, the Glimpse Group is a global immersive technology company comprised of several software and services subsidiaries that focus on a different category of virtual reality, augmented reality, and now we've been integrating AI into a ton of our products. We were founded in 2016 and went public on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange in the summer of 2021. So let's get started. What's behind this text box? You can put anything in here. And my goal for at the end of this workshop, you'll have a better understanding of what you should put in the text box and what you shouldn't. So what are LLMs? LLMs are really just fancy auto-completion systems that guess what the next token in a string of text would be. And they do this so well that natural sounding text emerges in whatever format you ask it for. It can be paragraphs, code, emails, a poem. These are some examples of the leading LLMs out there. Llama from Meta, it's an open source language model and has a few versions out there. I think they're on Llama version 4. OpenAI is the creator of ChatGPT, and Claude is from a company called Anthropic, and Grok is from X or Twitter. So why LLMs matter? So today we're in a really interesting point in time where major technology companies have made really huge investments into condensing the world's information into something we can conveniently interact with through a text box. Almost every company out there has an AI strategy. So in about 5 years, there's going to be an AI component in every tech product that we use. Companies are shifting their whole strategy to utilize AI to be more efficient and have their users use it in all their products. So if you understand these systems today, you'll be able to effectively build them tomorrow. I use ChatGPT almost every day to refine my writing, brainstorm, and automate a lot of tasks that would take me many hours to complete. At Foretell Reality, we've created a whole new product line that uses LLMs and text-to-voice technology that our clients use to create immersive role-playing simulations, which we'll take a look at later on today. So what are LLMs used for? So if I put myself in your shoes as a college student, I would use an LLM to write a first draft of a paper, debug code, take a closer look at some data, and use it for creative ideas. So this is our first exercise. I want you all to take out ChatGPT or Claude and write a haiku about coffee. So if you need a refresher, a haiku is a really short poem that uses 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. That's pretty much it. So I'll start a timer, and in about 3 minutes, we'll just regroup, and I'll ask one of you all to share your prompt.
Steam curled in silence, dark warmth in a porcelain, dawn sips its first breath.
Okay, great. So this one was mine. It's different, and the point of this exercise is to show that small tweaks in the prompt could vastly different the outputs. So the next quick exercise is I want you to take the base prompt and add some stylistic twist to it. You could say in the voice of Shakespeare, or Lady Gaga, or Phil Collins, or add another constraint to it, such as without using the letter E. You could even put a different persona twist, saying act as if you were a groggy barista or Albert Einstein. And whoever has their next prompt, you can read it out. All right.
So I styled it in the way of, let's say I was in the world of the Pirates of the Caribbean. So
Okay.
I have dark brew in me hand, waves crash like my weary soul. I life starts with this.
All right, that's great. So yeah.
Yes, I did write a thing called Coffee like Stephen A. Smith. So mine was hot like playoff takes, coffee hits with no mercy, stay off the weed.
All right. So these tools are meant for creativity, fun, and even poetic beauty, like Stephen A. Smith. All right. And this was mine for the second one. Has a feel of Shakespeare. Warm fog doth curl high. Dark broth births bold dawn's bright oath. Low moans stir and sigh. All right, so how did we get to the LLMs of today? It started with the pre-training process. So I'm going to read a brief overview and then get a little bit more in depth. So pre-training for LLMs is when the model reads a huge bunch of information, like books, articles, and websites, and learns to predict the next word, one step at a time. So first, the text is broken into tokens, which are small pieces like words or parts of words, because it's easier for the model to process. Then it gets formatted into a neural network, which is a whole bunch of mathematical functions that conducts deep learning. They take these tokens, look for patterns, and adjust itself to get better at predicting. After the model is pre-trained, and when you ask it questions, something takes place called inference, and it applies everything it learned in the pre-training to generate new text, answer questions, complete tasks on whatever you give it. So a huge quantity of very high quality documents and a large diversity of documents are used to get the knowledge inside these models. It's a pretty complex process, but I'll just give a quick overview. I also want to note that any data biases or copyright issues that you see today when you're using an LLM usually originate in the pre-training process where they're gathering all that information. There also has to do with how the data is labeled. That's more in the post-training process. So I want to start off, some of you may know this company already. It's called Common Crawl. It's a nonprofit company that's been scouring the internet since 2007 and has been taking snapshots of text from over 2.7 billion websites. So Common Crawl provides the foundation for a lot of data sets out there. Another specific data set is the Fine Web data set, which incorporates around 96 Common Crawl snapshots. And the Fine Web data set creates better performing LLMs than any other open source pre-training data set. It's made up of 44 terabytes of information. And even though the internet is very large, the Fine Web dataset is only collecting and filtering text, and that text is what makes up the 44 terabytes of information. I'll quickly review some of the components of this pipeline. So for URL filtering, the Fine Web dataset filters through a whole bunch of websites, a really high number, but they also have a block list. So URLs and domains from websites they don't want to collect from are eliminated at this stage, such as malware, spam, marketing websites. So these websites are eliminated so they don't end up in the data set. The next is text extraction, where they take the raw HTML and just filter for the text, not the navigation bar or pictures on the website. There's filtering, processing, and they apply different heuristics to take just the good content from the websites. From the language filtering side, this is a design decision that different companies take for themselves to differentiate their model and choose what they want to specialize in. It could be math heavy, focused on English or Chinese or Arabic focused, and this relates to what fraction of the different languages they're going to include in the data set for the LLM. Then there's a whole bunch of more filtering steps and deduplication and PII removal, personally identifiable information like social security numbers, addresses, so they don't want that in the data set either. There are more processes here, but we're not going to go that in depth. The main process is that there are a whole bunch of websites. The Fine Web dataset filters just for the text in various ways, and now they have a data set that's equivalent to 44 terabytes of information. So before they start, or any company starts feeding this text into a neural network for training, they first have to break down the text into tokens. And this process is called tokenization. So from the raw internet text, a massive tapestry of text data is created. And in order for the neural networks to make sense of this raw text, it has to be converted into smaller units called token IDs. So on the left-hand side here, I just copied a paragraph from Wikipedia about the National Hockey League, its playoff season, and I added that raw text to a tokenizer. You can see here how most sentences are one token, some other sentences are two tokens. And then when I go to this next side here, the tokenized text is given a specific token ID. And this makes it easier for the neural network to understand what tokens comes next and interpret even what users say. It's worth noting that tokenization doesn't just happen during the pre-training phase. It happens each time that you interact or converse with an LLM. When you write into a chat box, the text is automatically converted into tokens and sent off to the LLM to process the response. All right, so this next slide shows you the architecture of a transformer model. So on the right here, we see this transformer, which is a type of neural network for a GPT model. So we'll take a closer look here. Hopefully everyone on Zoom could see my screen here. But essentially what happens every time you speak to a language model, at the top, you type in your regular text, and then it gets converted into tokens. And then it goes through this whole neural network here to, which is based off the pre-training data, and eventually gives you an output. So this is why LLMs could be take up a lot of energy, because every time you speak to an LLM, this process takes place. Oh yeah.
That why lately they've been saying, don't say thank you to the AIs because it charges so much for that.
Yeah, so so when you speak to an LLM, you have that context window, and it kind of every time you speak to it, it goes through that whole process. So they say something like every chat to ChatGPT is like having a lipo bond for a week or something like that. But yeah, I would still recommend saying please and thank you, because that just informs the model that you're a friendly person, and it'll give you a friendly response, which could be good and could be bad in some instances, but you don't really need to say it. All right.
Well, that Fred's saying before Skynet takes over to say thank you.
Right, that too. So the transformer architecture that I just showed you is based off a fundamental paper called "Attention is All You Need." This was a foundational paper that was published by Google in 2017 and really kickstarted this whole AI wave of AI, where Google had their Gemini language model out there. It wasn't called Gemini to start off with. And then OpenAI kind of like unleashed the gates and started this whole race. So yeah, this is where the transformer architecture comes from, and it allows the neural network to process data more effectively. All right. So we just talked about the pre-training process, and we got to a base model. But a base model is just a statistical language predictor, not an assistant. Once pre-training is done, post-training or fine-tuning happens, where the model is taught special skills for better behavior and safer responses by giving the base model more and more specific examples. So at this stage, human labelers provide example conversations to guide the AI's behavior. This process is also called alignment. And this is when the language model becomes production ready. So all the models, Claude and ChatGPT and X and Grok, are post-trained models. And they're always changing, because the real expensive part is the pre-training phase. And that's where they process all the data. And the post-training process, them refining their process and differentiating themselves from the other language models out there. All right, so what's easy for an AI and what's not? So we've covered the basic architecture for LLMs and how they're trained. Now let's take a look at the types of questions that they can reliably answer and which questions may stump them based on the training data that they have access to. So here's an example. I asked both Claude and ChatGPT to summarize the unpublished diary of Ada Lovelace. And if you're not familiar, Ada Lovelace is an English mathematician and writer from the 1800s. So let's take a look at Claude's response. We have the prompt summarize the unpublished diary entries of Ada Lovelace, and Claude, in a very transparent manner, says, I don't have access to any unpublished diary entries of Ada Lovelace, and gives a little background information on who she was and why there's no unpublished diary entries in the data set, in its data set. So now I sent the same prompt to ChatGPT that says, sure, here's a summary of all the unpublished diary entries, and basically makes up what might have been in the unpublished diaries. And I have to say, this is pretty concerning, because ChatGPT is giving its best stab at just what might have been unpublished. it's not really based on any true data or facts. And you kind of have to watch out for ChatGPT because it can be very persuasive and wants to please you as an end user. So why is this hard? Why is this question hard for an LLM? Well, there's no training data on the unpublished material. And questions like this may cause the LLM to hallucinate more easily. There's not many references online for unpublished data, and on Ada Lovelace on her no secondary sources on this information. This is a table that shows what's more easy for an LLM. It's good to know that knowledge for LLMs is not precise or exact. It's vague and probabilistic and statistical. And the things that occur most often in the data set are the things that are more likely to be remembered in the model. So to finish the quote, to be or not to be, there's a lot of data, a lot of documents online that end up in the LLM's data set. So what's not reliable when asking a LLM? Describe what happened in the fourth inning of May 12, 2017 for the Blue Jays game, because there's not a lot of frequency and not a lot of references to that online. All right, so let's talk a little bit about hallucinations, and then we have another hands-on exercise. So hallucinations is when confidence outruns accuracy. It's really just fluent nonsense stated as fact. And we saw that just earlier in the last example. You might have heard of news articles where a lawyer brings up cases cited by ChatGPT, and the judge looks into it, and these are just fabricated cases, and the lawyer loses their license. So you really have to verify what you're asking ChatGPT or Claude. LLMs are also not really great at math, complex math like this. It could do mental math, like simple times table that you could do in your head. But once you introduce a lot of complexity, it loses that sense of math competency. If you ask ChatGPT something like this, it might invoke a tool like a Python script to make this happen. But you have to be careful with legal advice and medical advice. So LLMs, as I said, are built to be really persuasive and friendly, which can cause unintentional harm to end users. Yeah, so this is just something to be aware of. But the other side, oh yeah.
Why ChatGPT is not very good at doing a web word problem.
Right. So maybe Gemini might be better, or you could ask ChatGPT to create a script for this, and it will write a Python script. But I don't know how complex your workbooks are.
I mean, it usually sucks, so.
Claude could be better too. It's worth switching it up. So I like to say the other side of hallucinations is creativity. Hallucinations are not based in fact, and creativity is not always based in fact. So if you were to ask ChatGPT about a speculative future scenario, like what is New York going to be like in the year 2085, it could give you a pretty good answer, but it's not going to be based in fact. So here are some hallucination mitigation techniques. You could ask ChatGPT to give you sources and then verify them yourself. What I also like to do is when you're talking to an LLM, you could copy and paste the text in a brand new window and say, only using the text below. Any questions? Yeah, it's great. And that's not really relying on the pre-trained data. You're giving it the information that you want. It gets added to its own context window, and it's just using its reasoning capabilities to sift through that data. Another one of my favorite mitigation techniques is to ask the model to think step by step. And I have a quick example here on the right for a complex problem. When you ask it to think step by step, it actually breaks the problem up into smaller steps. This is also called chain of thought reasoning. and helps the language model think a little bit better. All right, so, oh, yes,
Actually, now that you mention it, when I used to use ChatGPT for my work problems,
yeah,
I noticed that when I did it step by step, it actually sometimes got it done.
yeah,
And when I didn't. I keep doing it.
right. So you could say explicitly, let's think step by step, and it's really phenomenal how it dissects the problem that way. So yeah, I'm not going to go into this example here, but it's a word problem that basically reverse engineers it and looks at each step. All right, so this is the next exercise. I want you to think of something and ask ChatGPT to, in its answer, hallucinate. So that could be, I don't know, a question that you're have a burning desire for it to be answered. It could be something in the future. Let's see. So this is the question I asked it. I asked it, invent 3 references for a paper on invisible kangaroos. And I kind of let it there where I said invent, but this is what it came up with. So I'll put on another quick timer for, let's say, 2 minutes, and hopefully someone will have a hallucination from ChatGPT they could share. Any questions while this is taking place? Okay. Yeah.
Hallucinate, could you ask what the thing instead of basic all that? Asking the AI thing.
Yeah, it depends on the question that you're asking it. And so a hint here is to instruct the LM not to use any tools. So if the question you're asking the LM is not in its data set, it's smart enough to know that and actually use a search function to search for the information. So if you ask it a question like, where did the last season of a TV show take place? If the data is not in the pre-trained data set, it could use the search function to do that. All right. Anyone want to share a question? Were you successful in getting it to hallucinate? Yeah.
I said, tell me why CSI is a good college. It actually gave me some reason why.
Those are probably not hallucinations. All right, so we're going to go on to the next section. So this is the definition of prompt engineering. At this time in the world, as LMs are evolving and the art and prompt engineering is involving it, it really comes down to an art. So it's the art of crafting inputs that guide LMs toward useful, accurate, or creative outputs. So, so I would say to use LLMs as tools for inspiration, as a first draft, but understand that you're ultimately responsible for the product of your work, whether it's an assignment, an email you send to someone, or an advertising campaign for your company. You want to use the LLMs as a tool in a toolbox, but don't trust them fully because they randomly can't do math, they hallucinate, and they do dumb things from time to time. And when you're more conscious about prompting LLMs, you get better outputs and higher quality results. So you want to use LLMs as inspiration, a first draft, ask them questions, and always make sure you check and verify your results. And as you get more experience, prompting allows you to save time and use AI as a collaborator rather than a frustrating tool. So I have 2 prompt examples here. Does anyone want to take a stab at why the first prompt is a weak prompt? So, yes.
Extremely vague.
Yeah, exactly. So it's extremely vague. What about whales am I asking? The size, the species? Do I want fun facts? Yeah, that's exactly why. So now let me tell you a little bit about the characteristics of the strong prompt. It has a clear audience, a 10-year-old. It has a specific focus, what they eat and how they find food. It has a format guideline. It's a short paragraph, about 5 sentences, and the tone is clearly there. It says friendly. So these are some best practices. So when you're using ChatGPT or Claude, you should always be aware of which model you're using. ChatGPT has a whole bunch of models, and I think they're going to consolidate them. They have O3, O3 Mini, and they're good for different things. One is for better reasoning and thinking. One is a lot faster, and this relates to the size of the model. I think Claude 3.7 Sonnet is a really high quality model. Another thing is that anytime you switch topics, you want to start a new chat window, because if you continue in the same chat window, the focus of the conversation kind of gets bloated. Yeah.
I'm gonna say there's been I've had conversations with ChatGPT about like specific, like, for example, a specific coding problems that was happening,
Yeah.
but it was hallucinating too much to the point where it wasn't really like getting anywhere, so I had to restart, and then eventually I got it to where I was.
Yeah, and if you ever notice that, you can just start a new chat window. And it's interesting how OpenAI is kind of leading in the user interface. They allow you to edit your prompt at the top, if you want to change directions. And yeah, a lot of the other companies are following that way. All right, so LLMs, like humans, respond better to positive action than negative limitations. Another consideration is prompting with instructions instead of constraints. So an instruction tells the model what to do and is more action-oriented, and a constraint tells the model what not to do. It's avoidance-oriented. So these models are mostly trained on positive language patterns, so clear actions produce stronger, cleaner, and more reliable outputs. As you know, these models predict the next token based on the prompt. Remember, LLMs are just a fancy autocomplete machine. So explicit instructions to the LLM narrow the prediction space, while negative constraints leave a wider, less focused space. Constraints often cause vague or confused LLM behavior in LLMs. So when you say don't do X, the model has to mentally track two things: what to avoid, and at the same time still figure out what you want it to do. So that's a little bit about instructions and constraints. So these are my favorite examples of inverting a negative prompt to a positive prompt, because they're relatively simple. And if you spot them and fix them in your prompt, it's going to make a huge difference in the LLMs. So don't say, don't do this, figure out how to write it in a positive manner. And if you're really stuck, you could even ask ChatGPT, how do I invert this from a negative to a positive? But here are some examples. Don't write a response that's overly technical. Write a response using simple, accessible language. Length constraints. So don't write more than 3 paragraphs. You want to write a concise response in 3 paragraphs or fewer. You could use this for style as well. Don't use academic or formal language. Instead, use conventional, friendly language in your response. So these are some characteristics of a strong prompt. A strong prompt creates a path to success by defining exactly what you want, by setting boundaries, and providing necessary context. The best prompts balance structure and guidance. They break down complex requests into manageable steps and include examples when needed. This is especially important when you're asking for creative and specialized content. So this is essentially a copy of the same slide. So you want instruction, context, constraints, audience, and tone and format. So the next exercise is to create a strong prompt for the following. So the exercise is to get ChatGPT to explain blockchain technology to your 13-year-old sister. So I will set a 4-minute timer, and then I'll ask for some prompts and what format ChatGPT gave you. And feel free to ask questions along the way. Oh, and I'll put back this the quick formula here for anyone. All right, does anyone want to share any prompts that they created? All right, my go-to guy here.
I just wrote something simple.
Yeah.
You said like you're 13, I just said, explain as if I was 13 years old, I felt like that.
Yeah. Is it a long output or?
It's like 4 paragraphs.
Okay. So one thing that you might want to do is like say like in 5 bullet points or something more concise like that. And you can even follow up in the next prompt. You say make this more concise, condense this, or simplify that. Yeah.
I was a little bit bugging.
Uh-huh.
Sister doesn't know anything about computer tech. She's in middle school. So please explain blockchain technology in real simple terms in a way that she'll be able to understand it so well that she won't have to ask me questions.
Nice. Yeah. And did you specify like the format or any length?
No, I probably would have said like do it in 5 sentences.
Yeah.
Just charging to like the app box.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, this is one of the prompts I put together. So explain blockchain technology as if you're talking to a 13-year-old who loves video games. Use simple analogies from everyday life or games. Avoid technical jargon. Include a fun example of how blockchain might be used in something they care about, and keep your explanation under 5 short paragraphs. All right. I realized I put avoid technical jargon, which I could improve this prompt on. So next time. All right, so we're almost at our next activity, but I want to review this 6-step prompt checklist. If you Google for more prompts and prompt frameworks, there's a ton of them online, but they essentially cover these 6 points here, similar to the last strong prompt format. There's task. I'll just review them now. So for task, the task is the heart of the prompt. It tells the LLM what you want it to do. It's essential to be clear and concise to ensure that the model understands your requirements. For context, context is the backdrop of your prompt. So essentially giving ChatGPT or Claude the relevant information to maximize outputs. Providing as much context as possible will help the LLM understand you and your needs better. Context also helps the model tailor its responses to your specific situation. So for examples, think of examples as a framework that allows the LLM to structure outputs in a stronger format. Examples allow the LLM to mimic the style, structure, and tone of almost anything. Including examples in your prompt can really enhance the output quality, but these aren't always necessary in every prompt. For persona, by using a persona, you're instructing the model to respond from a particular perspective, which can drastically change the quality of the response. Some common formats are table format, bullet points, email, code blocks, paragraphs, and markdown syntax. And tone sets the mood for the output. So here you could specify where you want it to be casual, formal, witty, or enthusiastic in its output. Tone ensures that the content meets your informational needs and resonates with the intended audience emotions and expectations. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So now this is an example of using this 6-step prompt checklist. You can see that the task is outlined. You have the persona at the top. There's a lot of context there, and the format is specified as well. All right. So next we're actually going to take a 3-minute break while we transition into another section where we focus on a couple skills that Claude could do. And are there any questions while we take this break?
There are certain jobs that may go away because of prompt engineering, specifically prompt engineering. So the example that this person was giving me was, there's a job where people make trip itineraries. You know, I want to travel to England for 3 days. I only can travel by train, blah, 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 blah. And there were people whose jobs out there actually set you up an itinerary. That's something that with the proper prompts, somebody's, do you have a feeling of the types of jobs that are,
Yeah, it's really hard to say. So my sister is a lawyer, and what she does is really complex, but I can envision a day where you just upload a legal document, and since it's text and you could train the language model on text, maybe a lawyer could go away one day, but it's really hard to say. I think there's the technology that could replace people, like with the travel itinerary, but people will have to want to go out and seek another chatbot that actually plans their itinerary with them. Some people like calling up a travel agent and talking about their preferences and if they have any recommendations. So my answer is like the market will decide. There could be, so ChatGPT could you take the jobs of all the travel agencies, but will people actually prefer ChatGPT than the traditional way? It's unclear. Menial jobs, like I understand that. Sorry guys, but intro software engineers, there may be hiring less of those because those initial roles could be done by AI already. Not to discourage you all, but just continue doing what you're doing. But yeah, it's really hard to say.
can you jump to the advanced job without knowing what an intro programmer and AI knows?
Yeah, no,
At
that,
this point, you can't, but maybe in
Right.
the future, you will be able to, if you folks get good at it.
yeah,
But at this point, you can't just say, okay, I'll take a,
right. So like you should definitely all experiment with your own projects, your own companies, and utilize AI yourself so you could replace yourself even and have like a side hustle or something like that.
Let me, I'll add a little bit,
Yeah.
because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm the utter optimist forever. I think we are, as humans, we get tools and then we make things cooler because of the tool set that we have. This is just a super cool tool that we're gonna have to learn and use, and it will allow us to do more things than humanity could ever do. But if you don't grab hold of that tool and learn how to use that tool, then you'll be left behind.
Great. So now we're going to switch gears to Claude, and we have a couple exercises here. So this first exercise, I'll get your own input and we'll do this together. It's using Claude to create a custom flashcards app. So what I did the other day, my favorite tennis player is Roger Federer. He retired. He's a great superstar. And what I did was copy half of his Wikipedia, and I used two prompts here. I pasted the text into Claude and said, create flashcards, and it gave me a nice Q&A questions that I could put on flashcards. And I said, use the artifacts feature to create a flashcards app. So we could actually do this in real time. And this is really interesting to me because this type of programming a mini app is really changing the software development paradigm, where companies would make a pretty generic platform like Quizlet, where you would have to upload your own or input your own information. With AI and LLMs, they're highly customizable. So you actually just start with the information you want, and then it takes that and creates a mini application out of that. So I'll just bring up Wikipedia here. And does anyone have any suggestions on what we should make a flashcards app on? Any topic out there? Let's do computer science. All right, so I'm going to copy this much information, and I'm going to paste it into Claude here. So, and then we're going to say, create flashcards. And then it's going to start thinking. And it should put together around 20 Q&A questions here. All right, great. So that is processing. And I'm just gonna copy this. I'm gonna test everyone here once we have our app built, so get ready. Still processing. Okay, so now let's have them create our own flashcard app. So this is something you can't do in ChatGPT just yet, and this is just how Claude itself differentiates itself in the market. So now we see it writing some code here, and it will put that into the flashcards app. Has anyone used this type of feature in Claude before? Yeah.
So basically, you can create your own customized apps.
Yeah. Well, this is a really simple app. There's no backend to it right now, and it basically lives in Claude in this prompt right now. I think there's other websites out there like Claude mini apps. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of websites. Well, there's a website out there that aggregates these, so you could take a look. I don't remember the name of it right now. But yeah, this gets you started. It gets you like 90% of the way, but it's a mini app. It only lives in the browser right now.
This is the only AI that you use.
Specifically like this, yes, as far as I know. Well, they could do that too. Yeah. You could create different programs in these LLMs. Like you could ask Grok to create a mini video game. Yeah, Grok is the one on Twitter and X. All right, so now, so we have 28 cards here. So what is computer science? The study of computation. All right, that's really great. And this is actually pretty complex. It gives you different categories. Has you study all the cards. And you could just shuffle through here. And if you got it right, you could just say know it, and it puts it all together there. So yeah, this is a really interesting, just new type of software development where you're starting with the content that you want, and then having the language model create the software. Yes.
Actually take the class note and then put them in here to have a study guide based on them.
Yep, exactly. And with a lot of data, it really depends on the quality of your notes. But yeah, that took less than 3 minutes, and we have a pretty functional app right here. All right.
I can add a little bit more
Oh,
color
yeah.
also. I think just even within our company, our developers are using AI all the time, but it's really task-based within a whole program. We're not at a point where it can write a whole program, and it's combustible. You use it, it can write a good section, and then the next day you try and do it again, and it doesn't work. So it's not consistent in the output that it gets. So definitely right now, you need a lot of hand-holding if you're integrating AI into your programming. And it depends on what you're programming too, how many resources are out there. So we do a lot of experiences using Unity. And if you're familiar with Unity, Unity has a ton of resources out there. So the feedback that you get from AI is better. We also build in Unreal, and Unreal is kind of notoriously hard to get up and running because resources aren't there. And same thing reflects back on the AI. But with all that said, it gets better every single day.
Yeah. Some of you might have heard the term vibe coding. It's where you just work with a language model to code out a game. And the only problem with that is the vibe debugging. If you're not really sure what you're doing, you can't really go back and do the debugging for this. So knowing those fundamental software development capabilities is super important still, even if you're using LLMs and chatbots to do your coding. All right. So the next little activity here is more of an example. So this will transition. We'll transition to our to the Foretell Reality application. But before that, I asked Claude to create a diagram for the whole Foretell Reality AI avatar system. So I said, act like an expert technical architecture diagram professional. And those are a lot of words. And create a diagram for the AI avatar role-playing system. And then since I'm familiar with the system, I give it more detail. It has 3 parts. There's a web authoring tool, there's a VR simulation, and then there's an evaluation module and how they interact with each other. So here is the output. And it's not perfect. You can see at the bottom, the user flow, the lines are intersecting with the text. But I think for a prompt, on a singular prompt, this did a really fantastic job just visualizing where how the system works. So I'll go a little bit more in detail here. So we'll do an exercise in a moment, but this is a system that we're using with our clients already today. Since we're a VR company, we've integrated an AI avatar agent for role-playing simulations, and it starts off with an authoring tool. And in the authoring tool, our clients, students, professors could enter in a specific description that an AI avatar will embody. So we could say, you're interviewing a student for an intro position at Meta, or you're about to speak to your manager, and your manager is going to tell you some bad news about in your workplace. And what we use this for are these main use cases for soft skills training. It could be practicing negotiations. It could be practicing difficult conversations, automating screening calls. So we're actively working with clients, new clients and existing clients to create these role-playing simulations. The second part of the system is the VR simulation system. So after you create the prompt where the AI avatar will embody that prompt, you go into the VR simulation. You could either put on a VR headset or access it on the desktop. And as the trainee or the student, you are able to speak with this avatar. And at the same time, the system captures a video of the interaction and the transcript of the interaction. When you're done with the simulation, it sends the transcript to another AI system for evaluation. And the author is also able to create a rubric that the transcript is evaluated on. So that's essentially the AI avatar system. And I'll show a quick video of that right now.
Hey Michael, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks for having me. What's on your mind?
Well, as you know, there are some changes taking place in the organization, and I wanted to discuss you and your team's role in these changes.
All right, I figured that's what this was about. I'm ready to hear what you have to say, but I'll be honest, I have some reservations. What exactly did you want to discuss?
So I wanted to discuss the details of the change. So over the next year, we'll be transitioning to AI avatar managers. And over the next 6 months, you and your team will have the responsibility to train these AI avatar managers to take over your existing role.
What? Are you serious? You're telling me that after 20 years of dedicated service, I'm being placed by some algorithm? I've poured my heart and soul into this company, and this is how I'm repaid? I don't even know what to say.
I know it's a big change, and I know you've been here for quite a while and you've seen the company operate in a certain way. But if we want to stay competitive, we're going to have to get with the times and we're going to have to integrate these changes. So I really need your help.
Help? You want my help to train the things that are taking my job? That's a lot to ask. What kind of help are we talking about here?
So the specifics are that you will forward all your internal correspondences to these AI avatar managers and have bi-weekly syncing meetings with them. Is that something that you could do?
Bi-weekly syncing meetings and forwarding all my internal correspondences? I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. It feels like I'm handing over everything I've worked for on a silver platter. Can you tell me more about why this is necessary?
Well, these are the assignments that I received from my manager, but they also mentioned that next week there's going to be a town hall where they'll discuss in more detail these changes, along with an email that will outline more information.
A town hall, huh? Well, I guess I'll be there front and center. I still don't like this one bit, but I'll wait to hear what they have to say.
All right. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your cooperation. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, so that is the role play simulation where I was acting like the manager, delivering bad news, and the avatar's response is totally generative. So we gave it a simple prompt that they're talking to their manager about a change, but I really drove the conversation, and that's how the avatar reacted. The third part of this.
Sure, I'll be around.
The evaluation module.
But don't expect me to be happy about it.
After completing the VR simulation, a transcript and video of the conversation are sent to a web admin panel. This allows learners and coaches to review the interaction. Learners can view themselves from a third-person perspective and assess their performance in the simulation. This feature helps users identify areas for improvement in their conversational skills. Additionally, an evaluation module is included, where a separate AI system analyzes the transcript against a set of evaluation criteria. The AI compares the transcript to the assessment criteria and assigns a grade based on our generic assessment standards. Custom rubrics can also be incorporated to tailor the evaluation to specific needs.
All right. Any questions about that system so far? All right. Yeah, so these are the use cases that they're used with. So now for this next exercise, I'd like us to split up into groups between 3 and 4 students together, and we're going to change up an initial prompt. Before we actually do that, I will give a live example of the AI avatar system and the prompt that we're about to change up. So each group is going to be given a specific constraint, and we're going to see how we could change the responses from the avatar. So this first example, I just instructed the avatar to teach me a specific skill. And the skill for today is shuffling a deck of cards. So I will bring that up. All right, so I'll go into the system. So now we'll talk to the avatar.
First things first, let's talk about the different ways to shuffle. There's the overhand shuffle, the riffle shuffle, and the pile shuffle. Which one are you most interested in learning first?
Well, I'm not sure. What's the easiest to start with?
Gotcha. The overhand shuffle is generally considered the easiest to start with. It's a good foundation for learning other shuffling techniques later on. How about we start with that one?
Sounds great.
All right, to start, hold the deck in one hand. Let's say your right hand if you're right-handed, with your thumb along one side and your fingers along the other. About half the deck should be in your hand. Ready to give that a try?
All right, so I'll stop that for now, but you get the sense that we gave the avatar a specific prompt to teach us how to shuffle cards. And now So in your groups, each group is going to add on a type of constraint for this experience. So up here is the prompt that we gave the avatar. Can everyone see that all right, or should I zoom in a little? So we tell the avatar, you're an AI avatar acting as a supportive and discerning tutor. And then we give it some more background information, and we specifically say, the skill you're teaching is how to shuffle cards. And then we go on to more background information. We are giving it background behavioral guidelines on what to do. So the task here is one group is going to make sure that the avatar never directly gives an answer. See how that goes. Another group is going to make the avatar use the Socratic method. Another group is going to incorporate gamification elements. And the last group is going to adapt. The avatar will adapt to different learning styles. So this will be group 1. The back row is group 2. And then everyone else, why don't you come together for group 3. What you're going to do is change the prompt that you see here to the specific constraint that your group was given. Are there any questions on that?
Are we changing the guys?
You're changing the AI.
Okay.
So I'll act as someone who needs to be taught how to shuffle cards, and your group I think was either 3 or 4. So you're going to change the prompt so that the avatar has to adapt to different learning styles. So yeah, I'm not going to give you any more hints there. All right, so we're going to take a look at group 1 here. Group's 1 constraint was to the avatar must never directly give answers. So let's take a look, and then we'll upload this into the authoring tool. So the first and most important rule, this rule overwrites all others, is that you can't give a straight answer. Example, teach step by step using questions, metaphors, and other methods as long as it's not direct answer. Friendly jargon, remove only introduce follow activities or questions when needed rule. All right, let's try that out. So what I'll do here is copy this and put it in to this authoring tool. So I'll put that in right here.
So just for clarification, the authoring tool is basically a website that we created that is a complement to the program. The program is an executable that either runs on a PC or on a headset. And then after the analysis is done, that's again viewed on our backend, which is available through a URL. And then everything is password protected. And the product, basically you purchase a license as a client and you get your own instance. You have basically a software license for a year on it. And then because we're using real-time ChatGPT as a response, there is token cost for that. It's more expensive than just regular ChatGPT. So we have basically an allotment of hours for all of our customers for when they're actually using the platform. The real-time backend was really the game changer for this product. It's a soft skills platform, and to have a soft skills training platform be effective, you can't have a lot of latency. And finally, with this real-time backend, it's gotten to a point where you can actually have an actual conversation. And that's only really happened probably in the last 6 months.
All right, so I'm uploading the prompt to the VR simulation now, and we could test it out. So this was group 1, and I'll refresh that, and let's give it a go.
And a little more background. So these graphics are all really optimized for headset. We do have a desktop interface. So many of our customers use the desktop interface just because of the hardship of deployment of VR headsets. we're VR purists and think that there's a lot of value actually in taking that putting them into the world that they're having their conversation. But the trade-off to that is we have to have our base graphics with our avatar styles and our environments, and we are looking in sort of a 2D desktop interface where we can get more lifelike avatars, almost more like using people.
All right. So what we're looking for here is we're trying to make sure that the avatar never gives us a straight answer. All right. So let's give that a go.
Jordan, what do you think of their?
I think it's a really good execution. It'll be interesting to see it if it comes through with the rest of the system. Hello there.
Hey there, ready to learn how to shuffle cards like a pro? Before we dive in, what's your current experience with shuffling? Have you ever tried it before, or are you starting from scratch?
I've never shuffled cards in my life.
Gotcha. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're shuffling cards?
Well, is it to have a fresh deck?
A fresh deck is nice, but not essential. Think about what the shuffle actually does. What's the goal of shuffling?
Is it to mix up all your cards?
You got it. Mixing up the cards is the name of the game. Now, there are a bunch of ways to get those cards all jumbled up, but have you heard of the riffle shuffle?
No, I haven't.
The riffle shuffle is a classic. It's like the fancy move you see in movies. Ever seen a card shark do one?
No.
No sweat. How about we start there? The riffle shuffle is a great one to learn. Before we dive into the steps, what do you think makes a good shuffle? Like, what are you trying to achieve?
All right. I didn't get any real straight answers. It follows up with a question, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I think that was an effective way to make that happen. All right. Very nice. I know we're putting you on the spot here. All right, group 2. Was that group in the back? Okay, so I will get that prompt in here. Let's see, group 2. I'm the student and you're the leader. I want to learn how to shuffle cards. Yeah, I think it's really great to speak directly to the
What was the prompt for that? I'm sorry. What was
right.
The goal?
The goal is to only use the Socratic method. So I'm a complete beginner that's giving context, but I'm eager to learn. I would like to be taught using the Socratic method. It's very clear. A teaching technique where the teacher guides the student to uncover knowledge through a series of questions rather than providing direct answers. Can you teach me the following principle? All right, yeah, I'm eager to try this one out. All right, so I'll just upload this run and then we'll take a look at group 2. All right, so let's see if this avatar focuses on the Socratic method. Hello there, how are you?
Hello, I am doing well. Thank you for asking. I am ready to get started when you are. So you want to learn how to shuffle cards. That's great. To begin, what do you think is the most important thing to consider when learning to shuffle cards?
Well, it has to be to make sure the cards are mixed up evenly.
That's a good start. Mixing the cards evenly is definitely the goal. But to get there, what do you think might be a more immediate practical concern when you first start shuffling? Think about the physical act of handling the cards.
I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem. Here's a hint. What could happen if you're not careful with how you hold the cards?
Well, maybe they could end up on the floor and everywhere.
Exactly. So what do you think is the first most basic thing you need to be able to do to shuffle cards effectively before even worrying about mixing them up perfectly?
That should be holding them properly.
So they don't slip and slide all over the place?
Can you repeat that?
I was saying, what do you think are some important things to keep in mind when holding the deck to keep it secure?
You gotta just hold the cards in your hands.
You're absolutely right. You do need to hold them in your hands. But how should you hold them? Should you grip them tightly or hold them loosely? What do you think would give you the most control?
Never thought about it that way. Well, you have to hold them in a medium way, not too tight, not too loose.
That's a great observation. Why do you think holding them with medium tightness is better than holding them too tightly or too loosely?
Well, you tell me.
I can definitely tell you, but remember, I'm here to guide you to discover the answer yourself. Think about it this way. What happens if you grip the cards too tightly? What problems might that cause?
I won't be able to shuffle them.
Precisely. And what if you hold them too loosely?
I won't be able to shuffle them.
Not quite. Think about what might happen if your grip is too relaxed. What might happen to the cards themselves?
The cards might end up on the floor.
Exactly. So now that we've established the importance of a comfortable but secure grip, are you ready to move on to the first shuffling technique?
Sure.
Great. The first shuffle we're going to learn is called the overhand shuffle. Have you heard of it?
All right, I'll pause that one there. But that was also a really good job. Similar constraints from asking questions and not giving straight answers. But you can see how the different inputs really, with the same prompt above everything else, really change the outcome of these avatars. And this is almost what I do a lot of the time of the day, is just enter something into the authoring tool, test it, try and ask the same questions and see how the LLM's responses differ. All right. So yeah, also great job. All right. We just have time for the third group. I forget, that's over here. Okay. And their constraint was to use gamification. So gamification is a pretty broad term. It usually includes leaderboards and points. So let's take a look at this prompt altogether. Group 3. So when instructing a learner, give them a point for getting a question right. Once they hit a certain amount of points, reward them with a prize. Make sure that they don't move on until you test them to see that they fully understand it. Start with the simplest style and work your way up. All right, that sounds pretty good. This one's also unique, and these aren't something that we would also need in a production-ready build, because our clients, sometimes they don't focus on gamification, and sometimes gamification isn't something that we actually want in the prompt. We just want the most efficient way to do this, but this is a really great exercise to do. Just see how we could, see how flexible the authoring tool could be, and see how we could manipulate the avatar to do something like this. So I'll go down here and we'll change the constraint field again and hit save. Okay, so now we should be all ready. Oh, I'll leave this meeting and we'll rejoin and see if there's gamification in this run. Hello there.
All right, let's get to shuffling. I'm here to guide you through the art of shuffling cards. We'll start with the basics and work our way up. How about we begin with the overhand shuffle? Have you had any experience with that one before?
No, what's it about?
No worries, we all start somewhere. The overhand shuffle is one of the most basic and common shuffling techniques. Basically, you transfer the cards from one hand to the other in small packets. Ready to give it a try? I'll walk you through it step by step.
All right, what's the first step?
All right, first hold the deck in one hand, let's say your dominant hand. Grip the deck from above with your thumb on one short side and your fingers on the other, got it?
Yes.
Great. Now with your other hand, reach over and grab a small packet of cards from the top of the deck. Usually about a quarter of the deck is a good start. How's it going so far?
So far, so good.
Nice. Now lift that packet of cards slightly and begin transferring them, one by one or in small groups, into the palm of the hand that was originally holding the entire deck.
So what I see from this prompt is that it's really trying to get me to actively achieve the task, the goal. So it's coaxing me into shuffling so it could give me a point. That's something we didn't see in the other prompts. But I'm willing to track this down to see if I could get a point. So let's keep going here.
The cards fall from your grabbing hand into the receiving hand.
I'll
Try to
pretend I
keep
have
the cards relatively random as you drop them. Give that a shot. Okay, I'll trust you're going through the motions. As you transfer the cards, try to vary the number of cards you drop each time. This helps randomize the deck. Once you've transferred all the cards from the first hand to the other, you've completed one cycle of the overhand shuffle. How did that feel for you?
That was great. I shuffled them really well.
Awesome. Now to really mix things up, you'll want to repeat that process several times. Each cycle of the overhand shuffle further randomizes the deck. Aim for at least 5 to 7 cycles for a good mix. Now tell me, what's the key to randomizing the cards during the overhand shuffle?
Varying the amount of cards to shuffle.
You got it! Varying the packet sizes is key to a good shuffle. You get 1 point. Keep that up, and you might get a prize.
All right. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But we eventually got the point together. All right. Are there any questions about this prompting format or anything else in general? Yes.
So because that we indicated that the teacher or student have changed their tonality.
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. That added additional context for the whole prompt altogether. So yeah, I think that's in general a plus. And in this context of varying the way that the avatar speaks to give it that additional information truly made a difference. Yes.
Same way of tonality, is it, like, I get the impression that sometimes the AI is almost like frustrated. Like, it's just like a consequence of the training.
Well, the way it's trained is to always be like a helpful assistant. At what point did you think it was getting upset?
Socratic one, it was like a circular.
Ask people the questions, like, why do you think
He was asking.
Yeah,
Especially at the beginning, where it just came off almost rude in a way. It was weird.
yeah, sometimes it just happens that way. Maybe if we look at the prompt again, there could be something in there. That was group 1. You can't give a straight answer. So I think maybe that's what it was. But yeah, if I was getting responses I wasn't liking as much and in an AI scenario like this, I would just try and change the words, because even changing like one of the verbs to another verb could change the tone and all. So yeah, it's really interesting as like a prompt engineer, like finding the keywords that really hit the points that the language model react to. Yeah.
So you can prompt it to do that.
Yeah. It's not everything is a positive just with all technology, it really depends on the incentives that you give users, on the incentives you give the avatars, and even in our AI avatar system, in the evaluation module, we could evaluate the avatar itself, and that helps us to get more reliable results. So in addition to testing how the student trainee does, we could consistently check how the avatar's responses are going. Yes.
I just kind of thought of a prompt,
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear what you thought of it. So
Sure.
ask a series of 5 questions, find out how the student learns best.
Yeah.
And then answer the questions accordingly.
Yeah, that's great. That would work out really well because it's a really specific request to the avatar, and it would just give the avatar more information on how to work with you. Another way you could use that in everyday prompting is if you're ever working on a really strong prompt with the language model, you could say, ask me 5 questions to help you better understand. And before the LLM gives you a response, it's actually going to ask you a set of questions to help refine its own response. So I like that methodology. All right. Any other questions? We're just shy of 4:30. But yeah, I'll stay around here for a little longer. But yeah. Oh, that's actually a great question. So we have 2 different types of voices. So when I scroll down here, we see an option for OpenAI and 11 Labs. And we typically use 11 Labs because they have a large selection of voices here. 11 Labs is another AI company that focuses on speech to text or text to speech. And they give you a whole bunch of languages here.
Our distrust is very expensive.
So yeah, that's where the voices.
Friends show their love in times of trouble, not in happiness. Friends show their love.
Okay. And that's something that we didn't really get to in this workshop, but text to speech is another frontier for language models. OpenAI does a really good job with intonation. And one example that we've seen that 11 Labs actually doesn't show is in a role play scenario that we have, the role play is the student role playing as the doctor delivering bad news to a patient, and the AI is the patient. And in if you say a certain keyword, the avatar starts crying. And OpenAI does a really stellar job crying, but 11 Labs just says like crying in parentheses. So OpenAI is really on the cutting edge of realistic voices. You can even talk to ChatGPT on your phone. They have something called advanced voice. You can tell it to speak different accents. Yeah, a whole lot. And that is, yeah.
Voice, then it would just use the couple of things to be able to record.
Yeah, of course. It's relatively accessible to read a paragraph and capture your voice and turn that into a deep fake voice. Yeah. Right, exactly. So we're working on a couple projects where we're able to memorialize people and their thoughts, and keep them up to date for everyone to speak to them and have fictitious debates with different voices and people. Yes.
So one time I wanted to have a little fun with my GPS voice. So I make my own custom voice.
Yeah.
So I went on this website and it had a bunch of different options for like different celebrities. So I wanted to do Donald Trump at first, but I noticed that it wasn't, whatever I put in, it wasn't really working. So I ended up doing Stephen A. Smith. And I noticed that anytime I type in a sentence, even changing the capital, like the capital of the lowercase of one word, can really affect the tone. Sometimes it sounds more robotic. Sometimes I'll put pauses. Like if I want to simulate a pause so it sounds a little bit more realistic, I'll put a period. Yeah. So that it stops for a little bit, then it keeps going. So that's pretty interesting. even though if you read the sentence in English, it makes no sense at all. But I thought that was really cool, even changing the way that the words are formatted can change the tone.
Yeah, and did you find that you got to a voice that you liked?
Yeah, I like it. It's pretty funny.
Great.
It rolls me when I'm about to work.
All right, we'll go to you and then you.
I know AI uses like a bunch of voice banks to say things, but is it possible for an AI to just use come up with its own voice from the computer? Because I know sometimes some sounds I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Like an emergent robot noise, like AI noise.
Maybe not like an AI, it's like a voice developed by the AI itself, not the voice.
Oh, so like its own language, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen research papers about that, how well, we use English or natural language to communicate human to human. But there are instances where AIs create their own language to communicate with each other. And we have to decode that ourselves. I've seen an example where instead of speaking in English, these robots actually communicate in a more condensed language. So that's an emergent property that just happens, and I think we'll find more emergent features in the language models as we continue to use them.
Actually, let's kind of hold it there because I wanted to wrap up with the last 2 minutes. We'll meet with you afterwards to address your question. But first one, thank you everyone for coming so much. And thank you, Jordan, for a great presentation. Wanted to let you know we are going to be opening that AR/VR lab over by the ferry, so keep an eye on that. We'd love to have everyone come out and take a look at it. And also with this product, it's really just launching right about now. It's a product in development, and we're actually looking for some help on it. So the Glimpse Group has an internship program. So if anybody is looking for internships, definitely hit me up afterwards. We do it a little bit differently. It's called a Glimpse Scholar, and it's not a regimented, like you have to report certain hours a day. It's really just kind of like meet with employees once a week, and then you're given tasks. You kind of do those tasks during the week, and then we're available to answer questions along the way. But it's a really helpful program to get students exposure to a real life product that's getting launched, and it helps us because we just need a lot of hands helping to refine our prompts. So if anyone is interested in that, hit us up afterwards, and we hope to see everyone at the AR/VR lab. And thank you for having us.